Hi guys, welcome to the show again. It's why I love Twin Peaks, and we're back again with another episode. So I'd like to introduce my guest this time round. It's Jill. How you doing, Jill?
Good. How are you doing, Frank?
I'm,
Thank
I'm,
you for having me.
oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you. Yeah. So Jill, the very first question I always ask is this one. Jill, when did you first discover Twin Peaks?
I first discovered Twin Peaks when they were filming it at the Salish, when they were filming the pilot. My stepdad was the executive secretary of a company called Puget Power that runs the power plant that's underneath and around the falls. It's a hydroelectric power plant. And from the early 1900s, there was a structure and a lodge called the Snoqualmie Falls Lodge. And my stepdad, his name is Wilbur, his job was to convert the Snoqualmie Falls Lodge into what we now know as the Salish. So he was deeply involved in the construction and the planning. And um, when Twin Peaks decided to film there, it was a huge deal as far as publicity went for the hotel. So as a little treat, he decided to bring me along. So I was there when they were filming the pilot, and I had no idea what was going on. I was too young. So I was mostly in the woods around the falls, and I was more interested in climbing trees than I was in the whole saddle shoes situation with Audrey Horne. And of course, I regret that now. But um, they went to some party and they came home and they had the soundtrack. And I was in dance classes and learning piano at the time. So that soundtrack became gold to me, just absolute gold. And I was playing it on the piano. I was improvising silly little dances around the living room, and I wasn't allowed to watch the show because, again, I was too young, 13, 14, I think, when it finally came out. But I was also the only one in the house who knew how to program the VCR. So I would record it and watch it while my parents were at work. And then by the time that I could drive, I was listening to the soundtrack in my car while driving around and sneaking cigarettes in my 1985 Plymouth Horizon uh, car, just driving around in the woods up in the Snoqualmie Valley and um, in the nearby foothills. And I just fell in love with the aesthetic because it's where I grew up. It's home, and I think it just has always felt like home. So that's a very condensed version of how I fell in love with it.
What a unique introduction you had to it to actually be there when they were filming it, you know, that pilot.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. Yeah, it really is. That's a hell of a time to be,
Well, and it
to
just
be actually
kills me
there,
that
Yeah. God.
I wasn't aware enough to have any clue. But here's another thing, and Frank, you and I have talked personally about synchronicities surrounding the Twin Peaks world. My best friend in high school, a girl named Kara, lived in a house that we found out that they were going to be filming next door to a few years later. And it turns out that it was right next door to the Palmer House in Everett. So I was also there for some of the filming of Fire Walk with Me, in a completely different city, completely different location, which, I went to private school. So um, people lived all over the Puget Sound area, which is a very large area for those not local. Like it was probably an hour drive from my school to Kara's house. And she and I used to skateboard down the hills, and we did meet some of the cast while they were there because we kind of knew what we knew what Twin Peaks was, and we were very excited. And they had to cut some of the shingles. They had to just shave down the wood, and so she and I would go into the alley where the trash was collected, and we would bring the wood back to her house, and we'd make a fire in the fireplace and put on the soundtrack, and we would have Twin Peaks fires, and uh, or what we called Twin Peaks fires, which was probably just a toxic, smoky mess of, how, toxically cured wood, but we sure thought we were cool. So that's just another synchronous moment that I met Cheryl, Ray, James. I think we met Moira, but we didn't really care because we didn't know who the hell she was. And um, we saw David Lynch, and like we thought we were just too cool for school. And so that's just part of my personal Twin Peaks love story.
God. It's very hard to know where to begin with that because that's pretty mind-blowing to me, you know, as a fan, as you can appreciate. To
Right?
be there
Yeah.
firsthand and see these things at the time is just very unique and very, you know, amazing. Do you remember any scenes that were shot at the time? Do you remember what were you at when you were there? Do you remember any particular things
I
that were going
don't.
on? Uh,
The main thing that I remember were the boys, all the boys, not just the actors, but the crew also were screwing around with the motorcycle. The motorcycle was a big deal. And Kara and I were hiding on her porch. She had a porch that had a wall surrounding it that was probably, I don't know, 3 feet high. And so she and I would crouch down and hide. No one was supposed to be home. Like, we were home, and we were hiding, and we just watched them. And I don't even know what was filmed of what we saw. Probably not much. Um, but everyone was out there playing with the motorcycle because the motorcycle was a big deal, and everyone just thought it was the coolest thing, and everyone wanted to turn riding it up and down the street where Kara and I usually skateboarded. So, but as far as filming goes, I wish I could remember more, but I don't.
that's very unique though, because not many people get to see that kind of thing unfold, firsthand. There's not many. Um, I would. Can you remember? I mean, was it particularly what was being done, what was being shot? Um, was there was the roads kind of locked off? Was it were they being quite secretive about what they were doing, or were there quite a number of people watching this as well from behind the camera? Um,
Well, it wasn't so much it was secretive. It
yeah.
was um the neighborhood knew because notices had gone out that there was going to be filming, and they did have part of the road sectioned off where they put the actors trailers, and the makeup and hair rooms and things like that, in the portable trailers. But the film crew was surprisingly small. I always pictured, there would be like a big crane and all of this stuff. And no, it was just like a couple of dudes with cameras and, lights going up. And um, it wasn't a huge production. It was just very much a let's get this done. And it seemed very ordinary, which was so strange watching the film later because it was so extraordinary. um, but as a young person who had no experience in the world of film or TV as of yet, I I was very surprised at how ordinary the whole thing was and how normal it felt.
Did you get to say any exchange with David? Did you get to say hello or anything? Or
I don't think I did at that time. I did meet Cheryl Lee, um, and she was very kind. I think she may have been pretty deep into character, because she was very kind, and she was also she was somewhere else. Which, if you've ever met Shirley in person, that's very different for her because she usually is just connecting heart to heart with whoever she's talking to, and that she wasn't in there, or she was, but in a very different way. So um, I did meet James and I met Ray, and like I said, they were pretty much just out playing with the motorcycle. And I think I met Moira. Everyone was really nice. They were not dismissive of just the neighborhood kids screwing around. They understood that this was our home, and they each said, thank you for letting us do this. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, this is awesome.
That is so terrific. I mean, that is just such a memory to have, isn't it? Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, when the original series, um, was first transmitted, um, were you watching it as a family unit, or were you watching it very on your own or with friends, or?
Very much not as a family unit. My family unit had no idea that I was watching this show.
Ah, right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was watching it on my own. And after watching the pilot, I was very careful to only watch it during the day because I was a big fraidy cat,
yeah.
and anything atmospheric would keep me awake for the entire night. So um, it was a daytime, afternoon, after school watch for me.
Which must give it a different vibe in a way because you know, where because it's generally rather, was going out around 9:30 at night, you know, on its transmission. That's when it was over here anyway. So you always associated it with nighttime and the curtains closed, and because there's a lot of dark moments in it and unsettling
Oh yeah.
stuff, it kind of lent itself better to watch it at night anyway, you know. So watching it in the middle of the day, would it did it still have the same effect initially?
Oh, I would say so. I lived in those woods. I grew up in those woods, and I knew what those woods felt like at night. And I was not prepared to double down on that feeling by watching that show at night while living in those woods. David Lynch captured it so perfectly, just the feeling of what it's like to be in those woods at night. And it's creepy as hell. Um, which is why, I learned to go into the woods with very deep respect. Um, but watching it during the day, it felt like night. I don't know how to describe it
I have to be
any
honest,
clearer than
Nico.
that. Right?
You would not get me in the woods at night for love nor money. It would terrify the heck out of me. Um, it's too, sorry, I just couldn't do it. I've really got
Well, you can't.
some kind of fear of that, you know? Yeah,
Well, you definitely can't hide who you are in those
no.
woods,
I think it's the fear
and
of
that
the unknown. It's the dark, the shadows. I don't think I'd be comfortable at all, you know?
yeah, and that's a very natural and normal reaction that a lot of people have when they come up here. Um, it takes a very specific kind of person who will camp overnight up there, which I find to be an absolutely lovely experience because at when you're in a tent out there, you can hear the owls all night long. And to me, that's a lullaby. That's a love song. To a lot of people, that's a I'm gonna go get a hotel room song. And there's no shit. It's a very different feeling. But when you grow up marinating in it, that's kind of that's your normal.
Oh yeah, it is. Um,
A different kind of normal.
it is. Um, that place, I mean, I've never been lucky enough to go there to the real Twin Peaks world, you know, Snoqualmie,
Mhm.
North Bend, all around there. As much as I'd love to, you know, it's always in my thoughts. I want to go there one day. Just let me do it once before I shuffle off to Buffalo, as they say, you know. Um, just one visit I'd be happy. Hopefully one day I will. But yeah, it just I mean, but I've spoken to many people that have been there, and of course people that live there, you know, as well.
Mhm.
Uh, and the people that have visited it, those locations that we used, like especially places like the Falls and the um, the Salish and all those sort of things, um, and the bridge, you know, and all that, come away with it. I think we spoke about this earlier on, you and I, when we before we recorded, about how spiritual that place is. There's a real kind of vibe and aura about that place and the land around it, and the woods and the mountains and the waterfalls, um, and they've all said that they've come away feeling very different than they were before they went there. You know, it
Mhm.
has a real effect on people,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, there's a definite energy to the place. And I
Yeah.
say that, as the stepdaughter of an energy guy, um, like literal hydroelectric plant guy. Um, and it isn't just the electric plant. It's there's something that's always been sacred about those areas. The tribe, the Snoqualmie tribe, used to have tree burials where they would put their dead into canoes, and then those great old trees that a lot of them have been harvested by the lumber companies. But there were just these great old trees, like 1,000-year-old trees above the falls. They would hoist the canoes up into the trees with their dead in there, and the mist from the falls would come up and carry their spirits away. And still to this day, it's a very, very sacred place for the Snoqualmie people, and the mists of the falls in particular penetrate the veil between worlds. So, very important prayers, very important blessings, um, are said or sung at the falls. Um, and I think that even, non-native people who visit feel that and understand that that's the thing that happens. If you go and you sit at the bottom of the falls and you open your heart, and you can release whatever grief, whatever longing, whatever love, whatever it is that you need to um release and put in the hands of whatever it is that you believe in, that there's a great amount of healing that can happen there, even if you're not trying, and even if you aren't aware of it. You don't walk away the same. You don't leave the area the same as you came. The land will work on you. And there's a gal who used to live in town, a sweet, sweet, fun gal named Mary Hutter. And she always said that the Twin Peaks fandom and the area are very much like Dead Dog Farm, that it draws the very best and the very worst of people. And that always it struck me as true. And then just in addition to that, I think that both the very best and the very worst of people have the capability and um, eh, the capability, I think, if they're receptive to the healing that the area has to offer, the land is going to work on them. The land is going to help them become their best selves. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the most succinct way that I can put it, even though it's very rambling, esoteric kind of statement.
No, I'm glad for that long answer. That's fine by me. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I really hope that at least I get on my bucket list of wishes that I get to go over there one time and see it for myself and experience it, and come
Well,
away,
I'll
you
put a
know.
wish into the mist for you, Frank.
Please
Next
do.
time I go. Next
Please
time I
do.
go.
If I can only do it once, that's all I need, Jill.
Yeah.
Just to go there once in my lifetime, I'd be happy, you know.
Well,
But I
I'll
would
meet you
really
at the
deeply
diner.
regret it. I would deeply regret it if I didn't get there once, That's the thing, you know.
Well, it'll happen. I'll meet you at the diner, okay?
Oh,
We'll
absolutely. Got some damn fine coffee and curry pie ready.
Yep, from Rachel and Max at the diner.
Yeah, by the time that
They're
I get there, there'll probably be different owners.
no, I think Rachel and Max are in it for the long haul.
You think so? Yeah, yeah,
They've put their heart and souls into that place, and
yeah.
they have brought it back to life. They really have.
Were they
So
the
I
with Jill? But as a matter of interest, were they because it's gone through a few ownerships? Were
mhm.
they the owners when they shot season three?
No,
Ah, okay.
no, that was a guy named Kyle Tweed
Ah, oh
and
yes, I
and
remember
his
now. Yeah,
son.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And Rachel and Max bought it from them just before the pandemic happened. So they it's a blessing and a curse. That's a whole other discussion that I would highly suggest if you haven't, getting Rachel and Max to talk about that experience. But they were able to do a lot of renovation and they studied the show and Rachel hand painted the back walls to look like the original wallpaper. And I mean they've just done beautiful, beautiful things with the diner. And the food is amazing now. It's really, really good. All kinds of vegan options. I'm not a vegan, but I have a lot of vegan friends who, you know, they're just amazed that this diner is so considerate to them as well. So, and they sell a lot of local artwork and, fan created items. And they've really been integral to incorporating the the local area with the fandom. You know, they've they've just done remarkable things. It's a different energy than, no shade to Tweeds or to Tweed, but Rachel and Max have really just gone in with open arms and transformed the place.
Yeah, there's a pie with my name written on it there.
There there
Not a
is.
whole
It'll be
pie,
wait,
a slice of pie. I'm not too greedy. I don't want to have the whole pie, but
maybe a mini pie.
yeah, a mini cherry pie like that, sort of like that, with a little bit of cream
Yeah,
on top of it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that'd be fine. Yeah, I'll be happy with anything really there. Yeah.
Would you get it with ice cream on top, like the soft
Oh, and
serve
that's what I'm
ice cream?
wondering. What do you think? I mean, what would be your preference? Do you think it should have um what is the other option? Hot pie with cold ice cream or a cold version? What's the combo you would
My
go for?
personal preference is to get it with the soft serve because otherwise, just my personal liking, the cherry, it's really good pie and it's so tart that the sugar just sets it off in a way where there's just this um alchemical bang that just hits the spot. I would I would recommend, but I also prefer things to be a little bit on the sweet side. So, um, yeah, there's see, I can even make a question about pie along.
Oh, as a matter of interest, even though cherry pie is the big one, that's the big one that we all connect to. Do they do apple pie there?
I believe they do.
Because
I
I
have,
I love apple pie. Yeah.
what I'll tell you, and I know it isn't a big thing in the UK, but one of the best things is to go during the fall or early winter and get their pumpkin pie milkshake. They put a full slice of pumpkin pie into a milkshake and they blend it, and it's like three meals. I couldn't drink a whole thing, even though I really wanted to because it was one of the best things I've ever tasted. um, but they do, I'm sure they do apple pie. I know they do banana cream because I've had that on several occasions and it's delicious. And they do a chocolate mousse pie, I think. So I know you're not going to be limited by what kind of pie you get.
Right. So when I get there, Jill, please book a table for me when I'm telling you. I'll let you. I'll give you a tip off when I'm coming over.
Okay,
I
okay.
want a damn fine cup of coffee, and I want a
Hmm.
slice of cherry pie with a couple of scoops of ice cream, and I want strawberry mousse pie as well.
Well, even
And then
if
I'm
they
going to
don't
die
have it
for
on the
about a
menu,
week. Yeah.
with enough warning, I'm sure that they would be willing to cook you up any kind of pie that you wanted. So we'll make it happen, Frank.
That
We'll
will
make
do
it
me fine.
happen.
That will do me fine. I'd be so happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to taste a little bit of everything because I'll never get it. I might only get that experience once. So I want to try
Yeah.
everything if I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's also a bakery two doors down,
Yeah.
and whatever we can't find at Tweed's, we'll get you hooked up pastry wise.
Do they still have they used to have a place, didn't they, opposite? I don't know if it's still there because I know it was there. I think it was there when they were doing season 3.
Hmm.
Was it a place called the Dairy Queen or something?
Scott's Dairy Freeze.
Ah, that's right.
Yep,
Because
it's
David
the
apparently was when he was doing the recce of the place was often
yep.
in there eating his lunch or something.
He'd get a burger and a chocolate malt. Yep,
Yeah, yeah,
yep. At Scott's Dairy Freeze, that's been there forever,
yeah.
like forever, and it's still really, really good. Just if you want a greasy burger and just a big, thick shake or malt, the fried pickled chips with some ranch dressing, oh, so good, so good. It'll give you some heart disease, but one time won't hurt.
Well, if I go, at least I'll die happy.
100%.
And that's all you can hope for, really, isn't it? You know.
Uh, yeah.
So if I don't get out of there alive, as long as I die happy with a full belly, that's fine by me. I'll be a happy man. Yeah. You know.
Well, we've got you. We've got you.
And I might go in the woods, but only in the daytime, and only with someone with me. Otherwise, you're not going to see me there at all. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I'll take you. I'll
yeah,
take you. You'll be
please.
you'll
Yeah,
be safe.
I
You'll
won't
be
go there.
safe.
I couldn't go there on my own. Not in a million years. Not in any woods. I couldn't go in any woods over here. It doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
Anywhere, any woods at night, give me the heebie-jeebies. Yeah,
Well, we'll go. I'll take you for a walk in the woods during the day. How's that?
that would be great. Yeah,
Okay. And we'll take
and
my dog.
and if we meet any Sasquatch, do they like cherry pie or anything like that? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that, but you know,
I mean, I don't think they would say no.
yeah,
Um, you can leave them whatever you want as long as it's biodegradable because, you don't want to leave them a Twinkie that's just going to sit there in a log for 20 years if they don't like it. But for 100 years, and then, later archaeologists will be like, what's this Twinkie doing here?
yeah. The damn things don't break down. What's the matter with them? Yeah,
No, no.
Imagine what they're doing inside your body. God, I hate to think if they don't break down for 100 years, what the hell's going on when you eat them? Um,
My school that I went to had one in the science classroom that someone put up there in I think 1983 or 84, and they had it on the windowsill with the date, and it just didn't rot. They just put it in the windowsill. So that was kind of a lesson to all of us when you'd walk outside past the science classroom and see this Twinkie.
that's kind of troubling, isn't it, when you see that?
Extremely troubling. Yes,
Apparently,
yes,
they
we
did that
should.
with they did that test with a certain very famous fries over, that you have over there.
Hmm.
The big M ones. I won't say any more.
I know the
And
ones you're talking about.
apparently, they don't degrade either, which is
Nope.
incredibly worrying. You know,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
consider how many people consume those things. You know,
yeah.
wow,
Yep, it's very disturbing. I think that's another podcast though, Frank.
that is another podcast. But God, but blimey, you could. Yeah, I'm really opening a can of worms of that one. Blimey, yeah. But yeah, but it's wonderful that you lived in that you lived in that world. You came from that world. You do come from
Hmm.
that world where they shot
Yeah.
this. You know,
Yeah.
staggering. Um, I know, and also a lot of it was shot in Los Angeles too.
Oh yeah.
An awful lot of it because they only did a certain amount in Snoqualmie, didn't they, in the original, and then they moved on to LA and did a lot of it in South
Yeah.
Stages, I believe. And
Yes.
I think there was woods out there they used in Los Angeles as well.
Yeah.
For a lot of it.
At Franklin Canyon and
Is it a place called O'Lally Park, or was that over in Snoqualmie?
which one?
O'Lally Park?
Olali Park. No, that's
O'Lally
in
Park.
North Bend.
Oh,
That's in
that's
North
North Bend,
Bend.
sorry. They shot
Yeah.
some there, didn't they? Did they
Oh
originally?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a trail called Weeks Falls Trail that's I don't know, maybe a quarter mile, half a mile long. And I swear to God, David Lynch shot every inch of that trail. It's so funny. Like you step foot onto that trail and you're like, oh, that's where Coop met Laura in season 3 and said, we're going home. And then 2 steps later, this is where Bobby found the baby laxative in the trunk and had a tantrum and threw the powder around. 2 steps later, there's Jack Rabbit's palace. Turn around. Oh, that's where what's his name? Ben or Jerry Horn was sitting watching the Dr. Amp podcast. Like literally, like you turn 180 degrees and that's the spot. Um, and just every inch of that trail was used and it was stitched together so creatively. And Michael Horse was out here recently and we were cracking up talking about that trail because when they were supposedly climbing up the mountain to listening station Alpha, um, it was all the same trail. It was the exact same trail. And you look down and you see the river, and it's the only place on that trail where there's an incline. So, he David Lynch obviously had the guys go down and had the camera guy film them go, marching up that hill, which is, maybe 10 feet or, maybe 2.5, 3 meters, if you want to do metric. Um, and I mean, it's the magic of filmmaking. But what I will say about Olali is that they did also the Nadeau scene where there's the portal and David Lynch built that little creamed corn bowl out of plaster um, in the woods, and there is not a trace that anybody was there in those locations in the woods. So big props to the film crew and the cleanup crew for preserving that land. They respected it, and uh, I couldn't be more appreciative as as someone who loves those woods.
And I've seen recent pictures of Jack's Rabbit Palace bit, and it's
Mhm.
really degraded now, isn't it? That it's rotting away that tree, little stump thing.
Yeah,
Sadly, it's about half the size it was when they first filmed it, I think.
yeah, and
Shame, really.
initially
Yeah.
initially the thought was that people were climbing on it and taking bits and pieces of it. But what I discovered recently, and excuse um, my autistic tendency to talk about mushrooms and fungus, but a couple of years ago, I found a mushroom called chicken of the woods, the fruiting body of chicken of the woods, growing on Jackrabbit's Palace in great numbers. And what that means is that the mycelium, the actual body of the mushroom inside, is working really hard and eating away at the cellulose, the structural part of the wood. So it's being eaten from the inside, and that's the job of the fungus and the mycelium. So as heartbreaking as it is to see a beloved location disintegrate, it's also the sign of a very healthy ecosystem and a very healthy forest. So it's bittersweet.
So it's basically nature just doing what it would naturally do. Yeah,
Exactly,
really.
exactly.
And you can't halt that really. It's nice I think it's nice to know that it's nature doing it rather than just someone going in there and vandalizing it or something.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are some jerks going in
Yeah.
and putting a handful of dirt in their pocket,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
because it was just mentioned in
Yeah.
passing in season three. But I don't think that there are many people who could get more than two or three steps into those woods and not respect that forest. So I don't think that those I think that the number of people who would do that are is very small.
So over the years, Jill, did you um I'm not a big collector, by the way, but did you collect any kind of memorabilia from the show, any kind of fan, any art, anything like that? Were you into, did you get sort of things like that, souvenir things and stuff?
Um, I've had a lot of art given to me by people who visit, people I take into the woods and give tours. Um, I don't, um, you know, I don't really charge people when I take them on these tours just because I love to do it, unless there are certain circumstances where I will, if it's out of the way or if I'm driving a large group of people and I need to rent a car, then, things like that. But people tend to be very considerate and very grateful. So they want to have an exchange in that way, and they'll bring me memorabilia or just give me gifts. So I have quite a few, um, you know, memories like that. Um, there was a gal in the UK, Cheryl Lee Ladder, well now Cheryl Lee Hirschberger. Um, she married wonderful Carl Hirschberger, and they came out to visit, and we went out to Kiana Lodge, and Cheryl and I were just having a blast with these little rock crabs that live under there, and we were exchanging rocks because she and I both have a tendency to collect little twigs and pine cones and stuff in our pockets, and so we exchanged rocks, like our pocket rocks, and so I have on my night table I have a stone that she sent me from Herm Island where she worked and lived for many years, and I still have the stone that she gave me. So when we were on the beach, we just exchanged things that were in our pockets. And there's also a couple who gave me a flower box decorated with the owl cave symbol, and someone had shaved wood and made roses out of just wood shavings. It's just stunning. And then, of course, when season three dropped, there was all that merch. And so, I have a ton of t-shirts and a sweatsuit that I bought from Tweeds, and um, things like that. But as far as like posters and things like that, I live in an old house and have very bare walls, so I can't really hang anything. Um, and I got a couple of the little knickknacks and things like that. But the most special things to me are the personal gifts that people will make, or like I commissioned Vinny Guidera to paint Pete's fishing basket with a Pete Martell's fishing basket with a green butt skunk, and that's probably one of my favorite pieces. Um, and his girlfriend Kristen Carlano knit me a pair of gloves, that fingerless gloves, so that I can wear them in the forest. So things from the heart, they make the gift very special to me, and um, that kind of memorabilia.
But I'm guessing you also must have like the usual. You must have the season box sets and DVDs and things like that. Do you have that kind of thing?
Too many. Oh my God.
I think that's about the only thing I really have, apart from some autographs, with the actors and stuff.
Mhm.
So I have some of the box sets signed, and but other than that, really very little Twin Peaks. I was not never really a huge collector of anything, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
buy it,
for
the
me,
mug and
it's
the ring, the t-shirt. Not really that much.
yeah, well, for me, it's more of it's kind of a combination of Twin Peaks fandom and just local fandom, just being a fan of the area. So I get, I blur the lines sometimes, where I'll have, like I have a set of coasters from the Salish grand opening that has a little picture of the falls, which is connected to Twin Peaks, but it's not. So it's it's a very blurred line for me.
Yeah, because you have to remember that that's just a place. That's a hotel.
Yeah. Yep.
In real life, and funny enough, hotel in the series, but you know,
Yeah.
uh, um, but the place that the original Roadhouse,
Yep.
for a long time wasn't a bar, was it? It did change, didn't it? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
in the
it's
series it was, but what I mean is,
yeah,
originally it wasn't used for that, but it's become one now. It's become like a bar restaurant again, isn't it? In
it's a
recent
bar
years.
restaurant, and there's
Yeah,
B&B upstairs, so you
yeah,
can
yeah.
rent rooms upstairs.
But it wasn't originally that at all, was it? They didn't have a bar or a thing in it. It was just it was another business, wasn't it? Because they only used the exteriors for the
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
The
No,
rest of it was done in a set somewhere, you know.
I don't remember. Honestly, I
Yeah,
drove past that building for years and
yeah.
years and years, and I was oblivious. It took me forever to figure out that that was the roadhouse that they used, because it's only from one angle that you see it, and that wasn't the angle that I usually saw it from. So it took me. I'm kind of oblivious about things like that. Excuse me,
Yeah, it's
Gatorade.
interesting. Yeah, they literally only did it one angle, and they only did the exterior shots. The inside was done somewhere else. The inside
Yeah,
was, I think Los Angeles, maybe in the
yeah,
soundstage.
yeah,
But there's so many places out there. I mean, not just, Los Angeles has a lot of sightseeing places you can go to. Because they shot an awful lot there. Um,
yep,
but Snoqualmie, for that original run, for the pilot especially, and they went back there and shot there again for Fire Walk with Me. So that was the most that was kind of shot, and some of season three too, obviously. Um,
a lot of season three.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was, I think, more than probably all the other ones combined, maybe.
I think
Um,
you're right.
yeah. But that was, I mean, they are so unique, those locations. They really are, aren't they? They've really, they're a character in themselves. You know,
Excuse me.
the locations
Hmm.
themselves are a character. Twin Peaks, the town is a character. You know.
I would absolutely agree with that
Yeah,
statement. Yes.
yeah.
As much as the music is a character.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. That's another thing I was talking about, and that pops up all the time. Because I'm well, not for one thing. I mean, the music's fantastic, and it evokes so many different emotions and moods. And without it, it would be never the same. Um, but I'm a music lover anyway, and it's interesting that music, that jazzy score was unlike any other kind of jazz I ever heard. It's uniquely
Forever
twin,
will.
it's uniquely Twin Peaks jazz.
Yeah.
No other
Yeah.
form of jazz really does sound like that to me.
No, it doesn't.
It's part of
It
that
doesn't.
world, and it's like, you know, I find that mind blowing, really. You know,
Well, I think that Angelo Badalamenti and David Lynch both drink their water from that deep well of consciousness that we were talking about before that um, evokes a place in us that's so deep and it's so universal that uh, either you love it or you hate it, because it exposes you in a way that some people aren't comfortable with, and some people will grow to love that discomfort, and some people will hate the exposure. Um, but I think that just those very simple arpeggios, deceptively simple arpeggios that Badalamenti used, along with the frequency of the instruments that he used, and um, the placement of those particular sounds with those particular images. And again, I'm going to sound like a whack job, but I don't care. But I think it really does resonate on a much deeper level than most media that we consume. Excuse me.
it certainly resonated with me. I tell you that, Jill. You know, um, the scores,
Hence the podcast.
yeah. I mean, the
Yeah,
scores, the soundtrack albums of the series and so on are remarkable pieces of work, I think, and still hold up really well now. I mentioned this before, the soundtrack to Fire Walk with Me. I think that's a fantastic piece of work.
it's
I
amazing.
love the songs on that, you know.
You recently, within the last couple of years, and forgive my memory isn't that great, but the Seattle Symphony, Kyle McLaughlin is originally from Eastern Washington, from Yakima. Um, but he came out and hosted an evening with the Seattle Symphony doing the music of Angelo Badalamenti. And I went with some friends, with my friend Tracy and Mary Reber and our friend Nathan, and met up with several other local friends because we all went, obviously. But Angelo's family came out from New Jersey to watch this, and I did a little, excuse me, a little write up that's somewhere online. Forgive me, I don't remember where, but to hear that music performed live was transformative. It was a transformative, and we were Tracy and I were sitting close enough that we could see the faces of the musicians very clearly. And there were times when, they were so joyful, they would just be playing with this big grin on their face. And there were times when you could see that they were fighting back tears. Like they were, even the music, especially the musicians were, were feeling it. And there were times, um, like when they played the Mystery of Love from Blue Velvet. I believe it was played in Blue Velvet. Um, that I was just sobbing. I didn't even know I was crying until like the song ended, and I was like, "Oh, my face is gross." But it was really an experience to let that music just wash over and through. So I hope everybody gets a chance to feel that at some point. And I think that watching the show, you really do, um, you get a taste of it for sure, a big dose.
Music was such a huge part of it. It really, had a life of its own, definitely. Um,
Yeah,
and I think we'll draw this to a close now, Jill, if I may.
yeah,
But I have one more question for you before we depart, and it is this. Jill, why do you love Twin Peaks?
because it's good.
Give me more.
Why do I love Twin Peaks? Um, the probably the most efficient and elegant way to put it would be, um, I think that it does help us identify with the best in our work, the best and the worst parts of ourselves, and it helps us. And I mean, this is asking a lot of any television show, and I wouldn't expect it, but it's just the effect that I felt that the connections that it creates within each of us, and then the connections that it's created between people. Um, the connections that you see the cast and crew meeting up for dinner on the regular. No TV show that's 30 years old has that happening. None. Like they have class reunions and they truly enjoy each other. You have fans meeting up at official and unofficial conventions. Um, you have podcasts, books, every aspect of the show being dissected and talked about because people still just want to that connection, and people are out there creating connections. Like you contacted me, I've met you once. um and we've chatted a few times online through comments, which is, that's a wonderful form of connection, and I do feel like we're friends. And then we get to have a conversation like this, which deepens it and strengthens it. And the connections just ripple out through the community, and then it expands those feelings of connection. Those, because once you're grounded, once you have friendships and relationships, you're more secure. You're going to go out. You're going to put yourself out there more and make more connections. It's the ripple effect, I think, that I love about Twin Peaks. That silly little show, that who done it, that was never supposed to be solved. That you know, I used to have brown hair, and you used to have hair, and through through all of
What
our
went wrong, Jill?
iterations, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing that whatever iterations, whatever, however, we evolve as fans, however we evolve as people, that we're still talking about this show, and that it's still a common ground. It's a common starting place. So, I've since connecting with fans, which I didn't do until season 3 came out. I didn't know that there were fan events locally. How could I not? But I didn't. And some of the best people, the best friends in my life, the best friendships, and some of the deepest lessons that I've learned about people, positive and negative. I'm still grateful for all the lessons. Um, have come about because of this show, and it's just such an important part of who I am, and my life and not just me. It's all of us. So I'm that's what I love about it, and that's what I love about the fact that you're doing this podcast, and I'm so grateful we've had this chance to explore it and talk about it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jill, very much. This has been a beautiful conversation, really insightful, and fantastic memories you shared too, which are, you know, are very unique and a rare thing for people to experience. You're very fortunate, you know. And the fact you live in that world is pretty unique too. Um, so I'm really grateful that you joined me. Thank you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
anytime. Thank you for so much, Frank.
And thanks, guys, for watching. And we will be back again very soon for another episode. And I'll leave you, of course, as always, with these immortal words. We'll see you in the trees.